1942, the Libyan Desert. A British reconnaissance patrol spots German armour moving across the sand. In most armoured cars, the crew's only option would have been to report the sighting and withdraw. That was the accepted role of armoured cars: observe, report, and escape. But this crew chose a different response. They turned toward the enemy and opened fire. A 2-pounder shell struck a German half-track at 400 yards, setting it ablaze. Before the enemy could react, the British vehicle reversed smoothly into cover, repositioned, and engaged again. This was not how armoured car warfare was supposed to work. Across Europe, doctrine insisted that reconnaissance vehicles avoid decisive combat. Yet the British had built something that gave its crews a choice. The Daimler armoured car was not intended to hunt tanks, but it was designed so that reconnaissance no longer had to be helpless. Early in the war, British reconnaissance units faced a harsh reality. Their vehicles were outgunned. The Marmon Harrington carried a Boy's anti-tank rifle. The Humber mounted a 15mm Bisa. The Morris relied on a Boy's rifle and a Bren gun. On paper, these weapons could damage enemy vehicles, but in practice they lacked the penetration to reliably stop German armour at combat ranges. The Boy's rifle was heavy, inaccurate, and punishing to fire. The 15mm Bisa was better than a machine gun, but still ineffective against anything with real protection. When British armoured cars encountered German vehicles armed with 20mm autocannons, the imbalance was lethal. Reconnaissance patrols became near-suicidal missions. Crews watched German vehicles manoeuvre around them with impunity, knowing that engagement meant destruction. The problem was not only technical, but psychological. Commanders struggled to find volunteers for forward patrols. Men knew they were being sent to observe an enemy they could not fight, in vehicles that could not protect them. Morale suffered. Intelligence gathering declined. The reconnaissance role itself was compromised because the equipment was inadequate. The British needed a vehicle that could fight back. The engineering challenge seemed impossible. An armoured car had to be fast enough to scout, light enough to remain mobile yet powerful enough to destroy enemy vehicles. Conventional wisdom held that only 2 of those qualities could be achieved at once. Tanks sacrificed speed for firepower, scout cars sacrificed firepower for speed. Attempts across Europe failed. A true anti-tank gun was too heavy for a wheeled chassis. Its recoil threatened to tear vehicles apart. Ammunition storage consumed precious space. The Americans armed the M8 Greyhound with a 37mm gun but provided minimal protection. The Germans built advanced 8-wheeled vehicles but restricted them to observation roles. No one believed a fast armoured car could carry a proper tank gun and still work. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. BSA Cycles, better known for motorcycles and bicycles, had built the Daimler Dingo Scout car in 1938. It was a small 2-man vehicle intended purely for observation, but chief designer Sidney Laird Shaw saw untapped potential. What if the Dingo concept was scaled up and armed with a real anti-tank weapon, not a machine gun or an autocannon, but a gun capable of destroying enemy armour? In April 1939, his team began work on what they called the light tank Wheeled. The ambition was clear. This would not be an armoured car imitating firepower. It would be a light tank that happened to run on wheels. The weapon chosen was the Ordnance Q F 2-pounder, the same 40mm gun used by British tanks such as the Crusader and Valentine. Firing armour-piercing rounds at high velocity, it could destroy any German armoured car and most early Panzer models at combat ranges. No other reconnaissance vehicle carried comparable firepower. The turret was taken directly from the Tetrarch light tank, giving the Daimler firepower equal to tanks several times its weight. A coaxial 7.92mm Bisa machine gun provided secondary armament. The 2-pounder lacked an effective high-explosive shell for much of its service, limiting its usefulness against infantry and fortifications. But for reconnaissance work focused on enemy vehicles, the trade-off was acceptable. Making the design viable required radical engineering. The Daimler weighed 7.5 tons, nearly twice the weight of the Dingo. The transmission challenge alone was immense. The solution was a Wilson pre-selector gearbox paired with a fluid flywheel, allowing drivers to pre-select gears and engage them instantly without stalling the engine. 5 forward and 5 reverse gears provided identical performance in either direction. Crews could engage the enemy, then withdraw at full speed without turning the vehicle, keeping the gun trained on the threat. An H-drive system sent power to each wheel individually, with epicyclic gearing in the hubs delivering exceptional torque. The Daimler could climb gradients of 50%, outperforming many tracked vehicles. Independent suspension on all four wheels and advanced hydraulic disc brakes gave it mobility and control unmatched in its class. A 95 horsepower engine pushed the vehicle to 50 miles per hour on roads with a range of around 200 miles. Production began in April 1941, only to be disrupted days later by devastating Luftwaffe bombing raids on Coventry. Manufacturing was dispersed across central England, with assembly, gearboxes and turrets produced in factories never intended for armoured vehicles. Despite this, production continued steadily. By the end of the war, 2,694 Daimler armoured cars had been built, equipping reconnaissance units across every British theatre of operations. When the Daimler reached the Western Desert in 1942, the transformation was immediate. Patrols that once fled German vehicles now sought engagement. The 2-pounder could destroy German armoured cars and half-tracks at any practical range, while enemy 20mm guns struggled to penetrate the Daimler's armour. Reconnaissance became aggressive rather than defensive. Crews reported that for the first time, they were superior to their German counterparts. From North Africa to Italy, Normandy, Belgium and Germany, Daimlers fought across every major campaign. Their speed, firepower and remarkable reverse performance allowed them to ambush, disengage and strike again before the enemy could respond. In the hedgerows of Normandy, crews even removed turrets to create low-profile command vehicles capable of slipping through narrow lanes, an improvised adaptation that showed how versatile the basic chassis was. In September 1944, a Belgian Daimler became the first Allied armoured vehicle to enter Brussels. During Operation Market Garden, Daimler-equipped units pushed ahead of main forces, navigating terrain that would have halted lesser vehicles to link up with airborne troops. Compared to its contemporaries, the Daimler stood apart. German scout cars were often lightly protected and open-topped. The American M8 Greyhound was fast and heavily produced, but dangerously vulnerable to mines. British crews consistently preferred the Daimler when given a choice. Later upgrades, such as the Little John squeezebore adapter, extended its usefulness even further, increasing penetration without altering the vehicle itself. The Daimler's service did not end in 1945. It remained in British use until 1960 and continued serving with Allied nations for decades afterward, seeing action in Asia and remaining operational into the 1990s. Only a handful survive today. The Daimler armoured car succeeded because the British challenged accepted doctrine. Other nations built vehicles that could scout. Britain built one that could scout and fight. By giving reconnaissance crews the ability to strike back, British engineers turned observation units from prey into predators and solved a problem the rest of the world believed could not be solved.